Hey everybody, this is Alex Big Blue, and this is my top 10 comic book teams. I will be telling you guys who my top 10 favorite comic book teams are from number 10 all the way up to number 1. So let's get started with number 10, the Teen Titans. So, first off, I think they are a very endearing and likable team. I really like all of the members, the kind of famous ones that is especially well known, like Beast Boy, Cyborg, of course, Robin, Starfire, and Raven, but also the other additions that they have. I always find interesting, and from what I've known about them so far, I haven't read a ton of them yet, but I do actually collect them in the comics, so I'm excited to really delve into this and check them out even more. But my primary thing that really got me into them is I really loved that early 2000s Teen Titans cartoon. I thought that was great. And yeah, I feel like they just in general are a really cool team that I appreciate quite a bit, and one that I think I will like even more as I get to read even more of them. At number 9, the West Coast Avengers. So this team would probably be higher, honestly, except I haven't really read much of them yet. I have read a couple of them. But the reason why they're here and at number 9 is because I absolutely love all of the characters they have in their lineups, in their roster. From Moon Knight to, of course, the leader, originally Hawkeye, and just pretty much all of the Avengers characters, a lot of the ones that I like are in that team. So I really like just a ton of the ones there, and like Wonder Man, for example, and Tigra, and just the white suit Vision. That whole thing started there. It's just it's just a really cool run that I want to read more of. I've started some of it, and I really like it whenever I do read it for sure. And I just, like I said, I think the roster, the lineup is really cool, and it's really awesome also that they had their own thing going while the Avengers had it on the East Coast, I think. But yeah, I think they're a very interesting team, and they'll probably move up in the future, certainly. But I really dig them a lot as a team. At number 8, the Secret Defenders. So the Secret Defenders, originally for the first couple at least, are teams that are called on by Doctor Strange. He's told kind of by, I guess, fate or whatever you would have it be called, which team members he will need for different various crises that wind up happening. And so each time it will be different teams that comes out of it. So it's very interesting teams also. It's kind of a lot of my favorite characters are in these early issues of this. And the Secret Defenders overall is just really cool for that reason because the lineups always change and the stories are always different because of who they're having to fight or what they're having to save. And usually Doctor Strange is the leader. Sometimes later on in other issues he's not. I think Doctor Druid, I believe, was one or two arcs at least of the leader. And there's also one with Thanos randomly leading a group of villains to do something for a couple issues. So yeah, just in general, this is just a very fun series that I absolutely love reading. And I highly recommend checking out the Secret Defenders if you guys haven't already. At number 7, the Wildcats. So the Wildcats are kind of just a great team in general because they have very cool characters. So Spartan, I really like a lot as the leader. He's kind of, I guess, technically maybe a cyborg, if that's what you call that. Because he can pretty much be obliterated, and he still lives on because he can get new bodies if he needs to. And Spartan is just a really interesting and cool character in general that I like a lot. Also, Voodoo and Zealot, just great characters in their own right. And Maul is really interesting where he can keep getting larger, and then, of course, he loses intelligence as he does that. I find that to be very interesting. Also, of course, Grifter is just a great, really cool character. Super 90s. And in general, by the way, I find the team to be an interesting kind of different take on like the mutants, like the X-Men or something like that. I know I've heard people say that before, but to be enough different to still be very interesting in their origins and what they're doing as well. And then fighting the evil Daemonites, I find that very cool. Very great villains too, I think. And I just really think this entire early run of the Wildcats is kind of perfect 90s awesomeness in general. And everything I love about that is kind of jam-packed into it. And actually, also, this is one of the first comic runs that I really started collecting and reading a lot once I started collecting more, by the way. So, yeah, Wildcats I absolutely love and definitely holds a special place in my heart. At number 6, the Thunderbolts. So the Thunderbolts, from the early Baron Zemo led days to where they're really the criminals dressed up as heroes and acting as such. Ever since that, I was very interested in it. I really loved that whole arc of them being villains trying to act as heroes. That's really great. I also really like when Jolt comes in as a true hero that doesn't know that the rest of them are villains. And she's like, a very likable character and doing it for the right reasons. So she gets mixed in. And I also really love it when Hawkeye eventually takes over and they become actual anti-heroes into heroes ultimately. And I think his dynamic with them is really cool as well. I also really like the way the team is led by Bucky Barnes at one point. That seems pretty interesting from what I've read so far. And there's other incarnations of the team. And no matter which ones it is, the stories are always interesting. And I really like the team a lot for that reason. At number 5, the Justice League. So the Justice League is really cool because they're basically DC's all-star team. They have all of the most pretty much powerful and most famous characters in DC in the team at various points and a lot of times together. And I also really like the Justice League particularly because they also have a lot of my kind of lesser known favorite DC characters in the team as well. Like Firestorm, Metamorpho, The Huntress, Booster Gold, and Blue Beetle, for example. And regardless of which lineup they're going with, they typically always have something interesting going on when I read the comics, which I haven't read as much of as you'd probably expect, considering they're such a famous team, but I do read them from time to time, and I do have some of the comics. And another thing I really like about the Justice League is my interest in them particularly grew even more than it was already with the 2000s cartoon shows, the Justice League, which I really liked. And I especially loved the Justice League Unlimited show. That was just great. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but if not, if you get a chance to go back and watch it, I highly recommend that. It pretty much had just like all of the members, or like a lot of them ever, just tons of them. They would send them out on different missions at the same time sometimes. So it'd be like 6 heroes there and 7 here and stuff like that. It was just really interesting. It had a lot more of the wacky characters or kind of more out there ones, like the Elongated Man and guys like that in it too, which I like. And yeah, that show was just great. It really captured a lot of what's great about the Justice League, I think. And that was one of the reasons why I grew in my interest for them, like I said. But overall, the comics, games, or whatever it be, the Justice League is always great in them, and I always really like them. At number 4, the Fantastic Four. So I think one of the things that sets this team apart away from a lot of the other ones is they really feel like a family, and I know in some ways they are too. And I just think that's really special about the team. Also, I really love how they always get into very interesting, intricate, just exploratory stuff, like where they be out in space and got a crazy adventure, or where they go into the negative zone, or just whatever it may be. They also have a great cast of villains. The Rogues Gallery is very strong, like King the Conqueror, or of course Doctor Doom, or just any and all of those ones that they come up against very regularly, including Mephisto for that matter. Just read recently a really great story with him in it against them. But yeah, the Fantastic Four just has dynamic characters that are all different from each other, but all play off each other very well, and I really appreciate that a lot. They're also kind of old school and have a just particular kind of charm to them that I feel like is very unique. But in general, they are definitely one of my favorite teams, and I like them very much. At number 3, the Avengers. The things I like about the Avengers particularly is, one, I love Captain America. He's one of my favorite characters, as you most know if you've seen my videos before. And I just think he really shines as a leader in this team. And I think, in general, I really like a lot of the characters. And that's kind of what the Avengers is kind of what brought them to my attention to start with in some cases, like Iron Man and Thor. I basically just knew who those characters was when I was a kid because of the Avengers and the fact that they were all together. So I've always really thought of those two characters along with Cap and others as synonymous for being Avengers and kind of a part of the reason why I like those characters as much as I do. And I also really like the fact that they always change their roster around from time to time as well. And I think certain mainstays that come in and out like Black Widow and the Vision and a bunch of others and Scarlet Witch, A bunch of those ones really kind of make their own mark in this team as well. And they typically always just have great comics when you read them. I really always appreciate it for sure. And just very interesting stuff whenever I read them. I really like the comics. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. The MCU, some of the best stuff they have done have been through the Avengers. I absolutely love the Avengers movies for the most part. Even my technically least favorite one, Age of Ultron, I still really like that movie too. So yeah, just I really love all those movies. And I have to say in general, the Avengers are just one of those really cool teams that's hard to not like if you've read anything with them or watched the movies. At number 2, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So they are one of my overall favorite things of my entire childhood. I was absolutely thrilled to check out any and all Ninja Turtles cartoons, movies, and of course, if I had had the comics at the time, the comics as well. I actually didn't get to read any of those or have those until later on, but now I've gotten quite a few of those as well, and I've read some. I'm very much interested in that also. But the show in the late 80s, early 90s was really what got me into them, and I just really loved them ever since then, honestly. The video games are great. The cartoon is awesome, for especially when you're younger and also for the time. Had one of the best theme songs, honestly, ever for one of the cartoons as well, I would say. And the comics are really good and very interesting. The Ninja Turtles just have that kind of uniqueness to them because they have one of the wackiest origins, I feel like, ever, maybe, if certainly one of them. So where they were actual turtles, of course, and, the mutagen falls on them and all that. That's just very cool. That makes them different for that reason. And the thing I think that stands out with them is I feel like everything about them shouldn't work on paper, especially as well as it does, but it really does. I don't know, just everything to do with them. The fact that they're ninjas, the fact that they're brothers, their camaraderie, but they're also all very different from each other. I love their personalities. They're really good as far as being in action. Their villains are great. Shredder, of course, is one of the all-time greats anyways. Whether it be Bebop, Rocksteady, or just any of their other, just tons of different great villains. The Ninja Turtles are just very interesting, very likable, and I think in general, whether it be like the cartoons and stuff like that, or the games, their colors and stuff just are really just out there in every kind of loud but purposeful way that I really appreciate. And in general, I've always really liked them a lot, and I still do to this day. They're just really cool, and I very much appreciate everything about it. And at number 1, the X-Men. I'm sure pretty much probably every one of you guys that have watched very many of my videos would have guessed they'd be here or very close to that, if not. And one of the main reasons I have to say is this. The X-Men, first and foremost, have just absolutely great stories. I don't know if I've ever read one of their comics that I didn't like, at least to some regard. And just usually they always have great stories, very interesting plot lines. The characters are, in my opinion, for the most part, all great. I really love most of the characters. I think Cyclops, Wolverine, Gambit, Jean Grey, Rogue, Nightcrawler, Colossus, just they go on and on, really. Rogue, I don't remember if I said her or not, but if not, definitely her. And Storm, just so many great characters in this. Beast is an all-time great, too, as far as a scientific type, and also as far as like a monster type guy as well. I just really like the way they all play off each other, their struggle with being mutants and society absolutely hating them, but them trying to protect them. And then they have to battle other mutants all the time, which, by the way, their rogues gallery is up there with anybody's for sure. Just great villains overall. Magneto, one of the all-time great villains in general. His whole chess match with Professor Xavier. Their ideologies not meshing, but wanting good for mutants. One of the all-time great story setups anyways in comics, I think. And just so many of the characters are just like very interesting in their own right. And then when you put them all together, it's just great stuff. Great storytelling for sure. I absolutely like their costumes as well. And they all have different ones sometimes too. And the fact that their roster does change from time to time, but it always works. It always feels like the same type of thing. And I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on it almost of how well it really does work. And I would also say one of my favorite all-time cartoons, and still to this day is just absolutely great, even as an adult, is X-Men, the animated series for the 90s. That was probably the thing that got me into them to start with. And it's just great still, honestly. They adapted a lot of the better stories in the comics and did a very well job of that, especially for being they made it where kids could still watch it too without being too crazy, but they left all the stuff in basically that you need for the stories. And I also have to say, speaking of all-time great theme songs, that's definitely there with any of them. And like I said, just the stories and the characters really set them apart for me, and that's why they're my favorite number one comic team. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Alex Blue. See you later.